So, Michael, I wanted to pull you into this conversation to talk about revenue recognition because I know that you implement it for clients on our services team. And it's a common topic that comes up with a lot of different industries. When to recognize your revenue. There's a lot of companies that immediately recognize it and it's not an issue for them. But there is also a number of other companies that need to recognize revenue over time. And could you give me a brief explanation of what revenue recognition is and how NetSuite solves for it?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you kind of explained it there. Revenue recognition is whenever you need to delay or defer the recognition of revenue to a certain point in the future or tie it to a certain event in the future. Or in particular, and what we see most common is when a contract's being delivered over a period of time and the revenue needs to be recognized over that same duration, matching the contract. So think like a SaaS license. You might bill quarterly, you might bill annually, but the point is, if it's a 1 year contract, you want your revenue spread out evenly over those 12-month periods.
So is revenue being recognized as you're collecting, or is that, can you explain that? So I've got a contract for $100,000. If I collect that revenue right now, and let's say I send a big invoice for $100,000, they pay it. Can you explain then why it might not make sense to recognize that revenue because I'm paid for it?
Sure. I mean, part of it is because you are still on the hook to satisfy that service obligation for the duration of the contract. And so recognizing all the revenue right up front is not really accurate to reality. Another part of it is just compliance. There's the ASC 606 uh, requirement, I think, from the IFS, and that requires certain deferments for different types of contracts, especially again in the software as a service industry.
That makes sense. All right, so we've got a certain times where we've got it like, all right, there's a strict, we've got a 1 year contract. We want to recognize it in even disbursements. It can it handle fluctuations where it's like a larger chunk now and then miscellaneous chunks that that you have that recognition, or is it just have to be like an even divide by 12 type of number?
No, there's quite a bit of variability. I mean, what we see most common really is what we call straight line recognition period, where it's just straight line by even periods. But what's great about the NetSuite Advanced Revenue Management module is it does give you a lot of flexibility for setting up different deferment or recognition patterns, rather. So you can front load it, you can back load it, you can offset it by a certain number of periods if you need to.
Is it always tied to dates? Or is there any other type of way to recognize like a project milestone? Like, what is there anything like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So most typically I see it attached to dates, but you can tie revenue recognition to certain what are called the revenue recognition event. So you can define if it's a project based, I think what you're describing is also fairly common. If it's project based, yeah, maybe you invoice upfront for a contract or you invoice at a certain cadence that makes sense to the customer, like monthly or quarterly, something like that. But you want to recognize revenue based on how much of the contract you've satisfied. So if you're using like NetSuite project management, that might be project milestones. It might be uh, time. It might be expenses, something like that. So you can tie the revenue recognition to the revenue recognition amounts and the points at which certain amounts get recognized to events like milestones.
Yeah, and I think that one use case is what about what when there's multiple type of revenue recognition? Can you assign different revenue recognition rules for items that are on the same sales order?
Yeah, that's what's great about it is it's the recognition is defined at the item level in the case of just a straight sales order, or if you're doing project management, it's defined actually on the project itself. So you can really have very specific revenue recognition criteria just for that unique project. Or if you're not using NetSuite's project management module, you can set it up on your item master so different items follow different revenue recognition schedules.
Got it. So an example would be, let's say I sell hardware and subscription fees, and maybe I'm installing like some units at a factory, and then there's a subscription fee along with it. Well, you'd probably have one line that is for the subscription itself, that would have like maybe you're recognizing the revenue every month. It's a 12-month contract. And then you'd have a separate line that is not spread out over 12 months because it's your install fee, it's your services. And that you're going to recognize on the revenue event, meaning like, okay, this the very first part of this, it's a $10,000 install fee for this particular unit that I'm installing. Well, we want to recognize that at the moment of installing it, and then also recognize the first month of the subscription fee, and then the rest of the subscription fee later. So I think the way you're describing it is when we set it on the line level or the item level, is you can have the split revenue recognition rules and these plans by those separated out depending on the service offering.
Yeah. So with something like it gets into a little bit of um, specific territory around, especially because there are accounting standards around this. So like ASC 606, which is the one you hear that all the time in the Rev Rec conversation space. Um, that stipulates anything that pertains to the use of the contract or is essential for using the contract should be recognized on the same period as a contract. So something like an implementation service, usually you would actually want to recognize that and defer that over the same period as the contract itself. But a better example is like training. Like you don't really need training, or maybe like a support license that kicks in 3 months in. That'd be certainly a scenario where you could set those items as long as they're different line items on the sales order. You can give those different revenue recognition events. What I see a lot of clients do too is, especially with training, they might go, we don't really ever know when training is going to happen at the time the sales order is cut. So in that case, you can actually tie the recognition event to like fulfillment record or to invoicing. So it's not going to start doing that deferment and recognition until you've actually cut an invoice, which kind of indicates the service has really been performed.
Wow. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds
Yeah.
like revenue recognition is a really powerful financial module within NetSuite and probably applies to a lot of space like the biotech space. If you're doing like research and development, maybe in the pharmaceutical space or hardware, software combos, services, probably a lot of industries overall.
What's so great about it is that the out of the box invoice transaction NetSuite is where you're going to hit your income on your P&L. And what the advanced revenue management module does is it decouples revenue recognition from invoicing. So they really kind of follow related but parallel separate paths. And so you have all kinds of flexibility for how you're actually doing your recognition versus when you're billing, and you don't have to really worry about the two interfering with each other or being constrained by one another.
Splits it up.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, this is really great to walk through what revenue recognition is and kind of explain how NetSuite handles it because a lot of people are just trying to do initial research of NetSuite, decide, or maybe they're ready to optimize NetSuite further. Maybe they accidentally just implemented everything as just invoices and recognizing it right away. And this is just the next step for compliance reasons or just to manage their business and their books better. Yeah. So thanks for walking through this, Michael. And I know that you'll probably be working with people as they're reaching out on our website and talking to us to implement revenue recognition. And I know congratulations on your recent go live over this past week. I know that you had stuff touching this as well. So good work on that. I know it was a successful one. But thanks for
Yeah.
coming
Thank
on.
you. Thanks. Happy to talk to you.